The silk sheets were cold against Sarah's skin. She lay in her king-sized bed, too big for one person, always too big, staring at the Seoul skyline through floor-to-ceiling windows. December 14th. Her vibrator sat in the bedside drawer, and she couldn't bring herself to reach for it. Not tonight. Not again. 50 years old in 2 months, and this was her life. A successful cosmetics empire, a beautiful apartment in Gangnam, and a loneliness so profound it had become a physical ache in her chest. She pressed her palm against her sternum, feeling her heartbeat, reminding herself she was still alive even when it didn't feel like it. 20 years since Marcus died. 20 years of surviving instead of living. Sarah pulled on her robe, champagne silk that made her dark skin glow, and walked to her living room. Photos covered one wall. Her and Marcus on their wedding day, both so young and full of hope. Her cosmetics company's first store opening. Her mother, gone now 5 years. Everyone she'd loved, frozen in time while she kept moving forward alone. The dating apps on her phone mocked her with notifications. She'd tried them all. Every match either vanished when they learned her age, made uncomfortable comments about exotic beauty, or stuck around just long enough to ask if she could invest in their startup. One man had actually asked if she was looking for a sugar baby arrangement, as if her success meant she had to pay for companionship. Maybe she did. The thought made her laugh, bitter and sharp in the quiet apartment. She'd built Mitchell Beauty from nothing, created revolutionary products for melanin-rich skin, employed over 300 people. She'd survived grief that should have destroyed her. She'd moved to South Korea alone and thrived in a country that wasn't always welcoming to black women. And yet, here she was, successful, beautiful, completely alone. Her body hadn't forgotten desire. That was the cruelest part. She'd wake at night, skin sensitive and aching, craving touch that went beyond mechanical pleasure. She wanted someone's hands learning her curves, someone's breath against her neck, someone's weight pressing her into the mattress while they moved together. She wanted intimacy, connection, the vulnerability of being truly seen. Instead, she had silicone and batteries and the same emptiness afterward. Sarah walked to her bathroom and started filling the tub. Lavender bath salts, expensive candles, all the self-care rituals that were supposed to be enough. She caught her reflection in the mirror, blonde locks falling past her shoulders, warm brown skin still smooth and glowing from her own products, a body that curved exactly right. She wasn't vain, but she knew she was beautiful. So why did beautiful feel so desperately lonely? Across the city, Min Jae Kong sat in his Mercedes, hands gripping the steering wheel, trying to remember why any of this mattered. The meeting had gone well. Territory secured, rivals warned, money flowing. At 30, he controlled more of Seoul's underground economy than men twice his age. He wore suits that cost more than most people's monthly salary. He had apartments he'd never slept in, cars he'd never driven, and a reputation that made grown men nervous. He had everything except a reason to care about any of it. His phone buzzed with messages, business, always business. His mother's number appeared and disappeared, her weekly attempt to convince him to marry the daughter of another powerful family. His few remaining friends had stopped calling months ago, tired of being kept at arm's length. Min Jae leaned his head back and closed his eyes. The last woman he'd dated, Sua, had been beautiful and cold. They'd had sex 3 times, and each time felt more like a transaction than connection. She'd scroll through her phone during dinner, mention his Patek Philippe watch constantly, and introduce him to friends as my very successful boyfriend, while barely looking at him. When he'd finally ended it, she'd shrugged. You're too intense anyway, always wanting to actually talk and share feelings. Who has time for that? Apparently not anyone he'd met in the last 5 years. Min Jae started the car and drove aimlessly through Seoul's December streets. Christmas lights decorated everything. Couples walking hand in hand, families laughing over dinner, the whole city celebrating connection while he sat alone in his expensive car. His second-in-command had pulled him aside earlier. "You need to settle down, boss. Marry someone appropriate. The old families are talking. They think you're weak because you're alone." Weak because he wanted something real instead of strategic. Because he was tired of performing power while feeling nothing inside. He pulled into a parking garage near Myeongdong, killed the engine, and sat in the darkness. 30 years old, and he felt ancient, hollowed out. He'd built this life thinking power would fill the emptiness his family's rejection had created. Instead, the emptiness had just grown bigger, swallowing everything else. Min-jae closed his eyes and let himself acknowledge the truth he'd been avoiding. He was so tired of being alone. Not just physically, though his body certainly remembered what desire felt like. But emotionally, spiritually, he wanted someone to know him, really know him, and stay anyway. He wanted to wake up next to someone and feel grateful instead of empty. He wanted to care about something beyond territory and money. He wanted to feel alive. Sarah didn't plan to go to Shinsky department store on December 15th. She'd meant to work from home, finalizing her spring product line, avoiding the Christmas crowds and their aggressive cheer. But her assistant had called in a panic. The in-store display was all wrong, and could Sarah please just come check it? So there she was at 2 p.m., adjusting mascara tubes and hoping to escape quickly. "Excuse me, is this Mitchell Beauty?" Sarah turned and forgot how to breathe. The man standing before her was gorgeous in a way that made her heart stutter. Korean, early 30s if she had to guess, wearing a charcoal suit that definitely wasn't off the rack. But it wasn't his looks that stopped her. It was his eyes. Dark and intelligent and carrying the same exhausted loneliness she saw in her mirror every morning. "Yes," she managed. "Can I help you?" He looked at her display, then at her, and something shifted in his expression. Like recognition. Like relief. "I don't actually need makeup," he said honestly. "I was hiding from someone and ended up here." He paused. "But now I'm glad I stopped." Sarah raised an eyebrow, professional armor sliding into place. Here it comes, she thought. The pickup line, the assumption, the disappointment. Hiding in the cosmetics section. Bold strategy. His lips curved into a smile that transformed his whole face. "I'm discovering it might be my best decision all year." They stood there in the middle of the department store, studying each other. Sarah noticed the scars on his knuckles, the tension in his shoulders, the way he held himself like someone who'd forgotten how to relax. He noticed her wariness, the armor in her posture, the loneliness that matched his own. "I'm Min-jae," he offered. "Sarah." She didn't extend her hand. "Not yet." "You speak excellent English. International school. You speak excellent Korean. 4 years in Seoul. You learn or you struggle." Another pause. Min-jae knew he should walk away. This woman was clearly successful, clearly guarded, and definitely too smart to be impressed by his usual approach. Not that he had an approach anymore. But something about her pulled at him. The way she stood, the warmth in her eyes despite the armor, the sense that she understood loneliness the way he did. "This might be completely inappropriate," he said slowly, "but would you have coffee with me? Right now? I promise I'm not a serial killer. Just a man who's very tired of pretending to be fine." Sarah's carefully constructed walls trembled. She should say no. This man screamed danger. Expensive suit, scarred hands, the kind of presence that suggested violence existed somewhere in his world. She should absolutely say no. "Okay," she heard herself say, "but not coffee. If we're doing this, I need something stronger." They ended up at a quiet bar in Itaewon, the kind of place that catered to foreigners and Koreans who wanted to escape traditional expectations. Sarah ordered whiskey neat. Min-jae ordered the same. "So," Sarah said, studying him over her glass, "what were you hiding from?" A business associate who thinks my personal life should serve corporate interests. Min-jae sipped his drink. What made you say yes to a stranger? Temporary insanity? Sarah smiled. Or maybe I recognized something in your face. What? The same thing I see in my mirror. Someone who's successful and lonely and tired of pretending either one is enough. Min-jae set down his glass, struck by her honesty. How long? 20 years. You? About 5 years of complete isolation. 30 years if we're counting emotional unavailability. They laughed, surprising themselves. Then Sarah asked, What do you do, Min-jae? Besides hide in department stores. He considered lying. Usually he kept his business vague. Investments, import-export, anything but the truth. But something about Sarah's directness demanded his own. I run a complicated organization, territory management, conflict resolution, resource allocation. It pays very well and requires me to be someone I'm not sure I like very much. Sarah heard what he didn't say. And the scars on your hands? Occupational hazards from when I was younger and stupider. Are you dangerous? Sometimes. To some people. He met her eyes. Never to anyone who doesn't earn it. And never, ever to someone I care about. Sarah should have been frightened. Instead, she felt oddly reassured. She'd been married to a police officer. She knew what violence looked like, knew the cost of protecting others. This man wasn't hiding what he was, just acknowledging it honestly. I make cosmetics, she offered. Mitchell Beauty. Maybe you've heard of it. Min-jae's eyebrows rose. You're the Sarah Mitchell? An associate's wife swears by your products. Don't sound so surprised. I'm not. You have that energy. Someone who built something meaningful. He paused. What brought you to Korea? Sarah's finger traced the rim of her glass. Grief. My husband died 20 years ago. Police officer, killed in the line of duty. I couldn't stay in Chicago. Everywhere I looked, I saw him. So I came here, where nothing reminded me of what I'd lost. Did it work? I survived. I built a company. I made a life. She met his eyes. But surviving isn't the same as living, is it? No, Min-jae said quietly. It's really not. They ordered another round. Then another. The conversation flowed easily. About loneliness and ambition. About building walls to survive and forgetting how to let them down. Min-jae told her about his family's rejection. About becoming powerful instead of loved. Sarah told him about the dating apps. About mechanical pleasure that only emphasized emptiness. I'm 50 in February, Sarah said suddenly. Just so you know what you're dealing with here. I'm 30. Min-jae didn't blink. Just so you know I don't care. People will stare. Let them. I'm used to people staring for worse reasons. Sarah laughed, genuinely laughed, for the first time in months. You're either very confident or very naive. Probably both. Min-jae signaled for another round. Can I ask you something? Depends on the question. When's the last time someone touched you? Not sexually. Just touched you like you mattered. The question landed like a physical blow. Sarah's eyes filled with unexpected tears. 20 years. The last time Marcus hugged me before his last shift. Min-jae reached across the table and took her hand. Just that. His warm hand covering hers. Thumb stroking gently across her knuckles. No agenda, no expectation. Just connection. Sarah's breath caught. Such a simple gesture. But it had been so long since anyone had touched her with tenderness. The tears spilled over. I'm sorry, she whispered. This is ridiculous. It's not. Min-jae kept holding her hand. I can't remember the last time someone touched me and wasn't afraid or performing or wanting something. This feels. He searched for words. Real. They sat like that while Sarah composed herself, hands linked across the table, something profound passing between them. When she finally pulled back, Min-jae felt the loss immediately. "Walk with me?" he asked. "Just around the neighborhood. I'm not ready for this to end." Sarah knew she should go home. This was moving too fast, felt too intense. This man was clearly dangerous in ways beyond the physical. But when she looked at him, she saw her own loneliness reflected back, and she couldn't bear to return to her empty apartment yet. "Okay," she said, "but just a walk." They left the bar and wandered through Itaewon's December streets, talking about everything and nothing. Min-jae told her about the books he read trying to feel something. Philosophy, poetry, anything that promised meaning. Sarah told him about her garden on her apartment balcony, how growing things helped her remember life continued. At some point, as they walked, their hands found each other again. Neither acknowledged it, but neither let go. "This is crazy," Sarah said as they reached Namsan Tower, all lit up against the night sky. "I don't do this. I don't meet strange men and walk around holding hands like a teenager." "I don't either." Min-jae stopped walking, turned to face her. "Sarah, I know this is fast. I know we just met. But I feel more connected to you after 4 hours than I felt to anyone in years." "I feel it too." Sarah stepped closer. "And it terrifies me." "Why?" "Because I've been alone so long. Because you're clearly dangerous in ways I don't fully understand. Because you're 20 years younger and people will judge us. Because..." She took a shaky breath. "Because what if this is real and I mess it up?" Min-jae cupped her face gently, forcing her to meet his eyes. "What if it's real and we get it right?" The kiss happened slowly. Min-jae leaned in, giving Sarah every chance to pull away. She didn't. Their lips met softly, tentatively, two lonely people remembering what connection felt like. Sarah's hands came up to his chest, feeling his heartbeat racing. Min-jae's hand tangled in her locks, pulling her closer. The kiss deepened, grew more urgent. 20 years of loneliness poured into it from Sarah's side. Years of emptiness flowed from Min-jae's. They kissed like drowning people finding air, like two pieces of a puzzle finally connecting. When they finally broke apart, both were breathing hard. "Come home with me," Sarah whispered. "Not for. I'm not ready for that yet. But come home with me. Talk to me. Let me fall asleep next to someone for the first time in 20 years. Min-jae kissed her forehead gently. "Are you sure?" "No. But I'm doing it anyway." They took a taxi to Sarah's apartment, hands linked the entire ride. In the elevator, Min-jae pulled her close, just holding her. And Sarah felt something crack open in her chest. The first real hope she'd felt in 2 decades. Her apartment was warm and lived in, so different from his sterile penthouse. Photos covered the walls. Plants thrived everywhere. Books and beauty products created comfortable chaos. "This is you," Min-jae said, looking around. "Warm and alive and real." Sarah poured them wine, and they sat on her couch, talking until 3 a.m. About childhoods and dreams and all the ways life hadn't turned out as planned. About loneliness and the different ways people survived it. About wanting more than survival. "I should tell you something," Min-jae said as exhaustion finally hit. "My world is complicated. There are people who won't like me being with you, not because of you, because of me trying to be something beyond what they need me to be. I can handle complicated." Sarah took his hand. "I just need honesty." "Then honestly, this feels like the first real thing I've felt in years, and it scares me how much I already don't want to lose it." Sarah led him to her bedroom, gave him clothes to sleep in, and they lay down together on top of the covers. Min-jae pulled her against his chest, and Sarah melted into his warmth. 20 years of sleeping alone finally ending. "Thank you," she whispered. "For what?" "For seeing me, for being honest, for making me feel less alone. Min-jae kissed the top of her head. Thank you for the same. They fell asleep like that, two lonely souls finding unexpected comfort in each other's arms. Outside, December snow began to fall over Seoul, covering the city in white. Inside, something new and fragile and precious was being born. The possibility that maybe, just maybe, neither of them had to be alone anymore. Sarah woke to sunlight streaming through her windows and a warm body pressed against hers. For one disorienting moment, she couldn't remember. Then it all came flooding back. Min-jae, the bar, the kiss, the conversation that had lasted until dawn. She turned carefully, not wanting to wake him, and studied his sleeping face. He looked younger asleep, vulnerable in a way she suspected he rarely allowed. His arm was draped over her waist, holding her close even in sleep, and Sarah felt her heart do something complicated in her chest. This was dangerous. This was stupid. This was moving way too fast. She didn't care. Min-jae's eyes opened, found hers, and softened into a smile. Good morning. Good morning. Sarah suddenly felt shy, which was ridiculous. Sleep okay? Better than I have in years. He brushed a lock away from her face. You? Same. She bit her lip. Min-jae, last night, was perfect. And if you're about to tell me it was a mistake, please don't. Not yet. Give me at least until after coffee. Sarah laughed, tension breaking. I was actually going to say last night was unexpected. I don't usually bring strange men home. I don't usually sleep in strange women's beds with all my clothes on. Min-jae's phone buzzed insistently. He glanced at it and sighed. I have to deal with this. Work crisis. Okay. Sarah tried not to feel disappointed. Min-jae caught it anyway. But I want to see you again. Tonight? Tomorrow? Whenever you're free. Tonight, Sarah heard herself say. Come back tonight. I'll cook. You don't have to. I want to. She met his eyes. I want to see if this feeling is real or just loneliness making us both crazy. Min-jae kissed her softly. It's real. But I'll come back tonight so we can both be sure. After he left, Sarah stood in her kitchen, touching her lips where he'd kissed her, feeling like a teenager with her first crush. It was absurd. She was a 50-year-old business owner, not some romance novel heroine. But when she caught her reflection in the window, she saw someone she barely recognized. Someone smiling, someone hopeful, someone alive. She called her best friend Ji-won, an American expat who'd been her rock through the grief years. I did something crazy, Sarah said without preamble. Oh, thank God, Ji-won replied. It's about time. Tell me everything. Sarah did, the chance meeting, the conversation, the kiss, waking up in his arms. Ji-won listened quietly, then asked the hard question. Do you know what kind of complicated business he's in? Not exactly, but I have suspicions. And you're okay with that? Sarah thought about Marcus, about the nights he'd come home exhausted from seeing humanity's worst, about the risks he'd taken to protect people, about how she'd loved him anyway. I married a cop, she said quietly. I understand that good people sometimes exist in dark spaces. And Ji-won, you didn't see his eyes. He's trying so hard to be better than what his world requires. Okay, but Sarah, promise me you'll be careful? Your heart has been through enough. I promise. After hanging up, Sarah cleaned her apartment properly for the first time in weeks, changed her sheets, and tried to figure out what to cook for a man she barely knew but couldn't stop thinking about. She settled on jerk chicken, her grandmother's recipe, with Korean sides. Fusion, like them. Min-jae's day was hell. Territory disputes, a rival family making moves, his second-in-command questioning his judgment. But through it all, he kept touching his lips, remembering Sarah's kiss, counting hours until he could see her again. You're distracted, Taeyong said during their afternoon meeting. That's dangerous in our business. I'm fine. You're different. Since yesterday. What happened? Min-jae considered lying, then decided against it. I met someone. Taeyong's face darkened. Boss, you know personal attachments are. I don't care. Min-jae stood. I'm 30 years old, and I'm tired of living like emotions are weaknesses. I met someone who makes me want to be better, and I'm not walking away from that. He left before Taeyong could argue, stopped at a flower shop, and bought birds of paradise because they reminded him of Sarah. Exotic, beautiful, resilient. When he arrived at her apartment that evening, Sarah opened the door wearing jeans and a simple sweater. No makeup, locks pulled back casually, and Min-jae thought she'd never looked more beautiful. You brought flowers, she said, surprised. I brought hope, he corrected. The flowers were just convenient. Sarah laughed and pulled him inside. The apartment smelled incredible. Spices and warmth and home. Min-jae set the flowers down and pulled her into a hug, just holding her, feeling his racing thoughts finally slow. Bad day, Sarah murmured against his chest. Better now. They cooked together, or rather, Sarah cooked while Min-jae watched, asked questions, and occasionally got in the way. She told him about her grandmother in Mississippi, about learning to cook as love language. He told her about his mother's kitchen before everything went wrong, about missing the feeling of family. Over dinner, they talked about their childhoods, about dreams they'd abandoned and ones they still held. Min-jae admitted he wanted to go legitimate, to build something clean. Sarah admitted she wanted to expand her company into a foundation, helping young black women enter beauty industry. Why haven't you? Min-jae asked. Because I convinced myself work was enough. That success would fill the hole. Sarah set down her fork. But it doesn't, does it? The loneliness just gets bigger. No. Min-jae reached across the table, took her hand. It doesn't. After dinner, they moved to the couch with wine, and the conversation shifted. Deeper, more personal. Can I ask you something? Sarah said. When's the last time you had sex that actually meant something? Min-jae's laugh was hollow. Never, probably. It's always been either transaction or performance. What about you? 20 years. With Marcus. After he died, I tried dating a few times, but she looked away. Nobody wanted to know me. They wanted the successful businesswoman or the black woman they could check off some list or the lonely widow they could rescue. So I stopped trying. And you've been alone since? Physically alone? Yes. Emotionally? Even longer. Sarah met his eyes. I have a drawer full of expensive vibrators, Min-jae. I know what pleasure feels like. But it's hollow. It's just sensation without connection. And somehow that makes the loneliness worse. Min-jae pulled her closer. I'm sorry. Don't be. I survived. She paused. But I don't want to just survive anymore. I want to actually live. Then live. Min-jae cupped her face. We both can. Together. The kiss started slow but quickly deepened. Sarah shifted into Min-jae's lap, and he groaned against her mouth, hands sliding up her back. She pulled back slightly, breathing hard. We should slow down, she whispered, even as her body pressed closer. We should, Min-jae agreed, kissing down her neck. Tell me to stop. I don't want you to stop. Sarah's hands slid under his shirt, feeling warm skin and muscle. God, I don't want you to stop. Min-jae carried her to the bedroom, laid her gently on the bed, and just looked at her. You're so beautiful. I'm old, Sarah said automatically. You're so beautiful, Min-jae repeated firmly. He lay beside her, propped on one elbow. Can I touch you? Just touch. Nothing more yet. Sarah nodded, heart racing. Min-jae started at her face, tracing her cheekbones, her lips, her jaw, then her neck, feeling her pulse jump. His hand slid to her collarbone, then lower, over her sweater, learning her curves through fabric. Sarah's breath hitched. Okay, he murmured. More than okay. He took his time, touching her everywhere, worshipping her body through clothes. When Sarah's hips lifted involuntarily, he smiled against her neck. Responsive. I like that. Min Jae. Sarah's voice was desperate. Please. Please what? Tell me what you want. Touch me. Properly. Skin to skin. Min Jae sat up, removed his shirt, then helped Sarah out of her sweater and bra. For a moment, he just stared at her full breasts, her soft stomach, the beautiful landscape of her body. Then he lowered his mouth to her breast, and Sarah cried out. He took his time there too, learning what made her gasp, what made her arch into him. His hand slid down her stomach, popped the button of her jeans, but didn't go further. Not yet, he murmured. First, I want to learn everything else. They spent an hour like that, Min Jae exploring every inch of her upper body, Sarah trembling and gasping and remembering what it felt like to be truly desired. When he finally removed her jeans and underwear, she was shaking with need. Beautiful, Min Jae breathed, looking at all of her. Sarah, you're so beautiful. Then his mouth was on her, and Sarah stopped thinking entirely. She'd forgotten, completely forgotten what this felt like. Not mechanical, not solo, but someone else's tongue and fingers working in perfect rhythm. Someone else's goal being her pleasure. Min Jae was patient and thorough, paying attention to every sound she made, every movement of her hips. When the orgasm finally hit, Sarah screamed, her hands fisting in his hair, her body arching off the bed. Min Jae worked her through it, then kept going, building her up again until she came a second time, sobbing his name. He crawled up her body, kissing her deeply, letting her taste herself on his tongue. Sarah's hands went to his belt, but he caught them. Not tonight, he said softly. Tonight was about you, about reminding you that you deserve to be worshipped. But you didn't. I'm fine, better than fine. He pulled her against his chest. That was the most erotic experience of my life. And I didn't even undress completely. Sarah laughed shakily. You're dangerous. Only to your belief that you're not worthy of good things. Min Jae kissed her forehead. Sleep. I'll be here when you wake up. And he was. When Sarah woke at 3 a.m., Min Jae was still holding her. Still dressed. Keeping his promise. She turned in his arms, studied his sleeping face, and felt something terrifying and wonderful bloom in her chest. This was more than physical. This was connection she'd thought she'd never feel again. In the morning, they made breakfast together, talking easily, touching constantly. Her hand on his arm, his fingers in her locks, casual intimacy that felt profound. Before Min Jae left for work, he pulled her close. Dinner again tonight? He asked. My place this time. I want to show you where I live. Okay, Sarah agreed. But Min Jae, tonight no more holding back. For either of us. His eyes darkened with promise. Are you sure? I've been alone for 20 years. I'm sure. Min Jae's penthouse was exactly what Sarah expected. Expensive, beautiful, and completely impersonal. Like a hotel suite, not a home. You don't actually live here, she said, looking around. You exist here. Min Jae set down the takeout he'd ordered. He'd admitted he couldn't cook. You're the first person to notice that. Because everyone else just sees the money. Sarah walked to the windows, looked out at Seoul sprawling below. This view is incredible, but it's lonely. Like looking at life from a distance. Min Jae came up behind her, wrapped his arms around her waist. Everything's been at a distance. Until you. Sarah turned in his arms. Show me the real parts, where you actually spend time. He showed her his study, filled with books, a desk covered in notes, evidence of someone seeking meaning. He showed her the closet where expensive suits hung in neat rows, armor for facing his world. He showed her the bedroom where he rarely slept, admitting he usually passed out in his study after reading for hours. "I'm a mess," he said quietly, pretending to be put together. "I have 3 vibrators and cry in the bathtub every Valentine's Day," Sarah countered. "We're both messy. At least we can be messy together." They ate dinner on his couch, Thai food because Sarah loved it, and talked about their days. Sarah told him about a difficult client meeting. Min Jae told her, carefully, about trying to negotiate a peaceful solution to a territory dispute. Neither pretended their lives were simple. "Do you want to know?" Min Jae asked. "About what I actually do?" Sarah considered. "Eventually. But right now I want to know you. The rest we'll figure out." After dinner, Min Jae put on music, American soul from the 70s because Sarah had mentioned loving it. He pulled her up to dance, and they swayed together in his living room, her head on his chest, his arms around her waist. "I can't remember the last time I danced," Sarah murmured. "I can't remember the last time I wanted to." Min Jae kissed her temple. "Sarah, you're changing everything." She looked up at him. "Good. You're changing everything for me too." The kiss started gentle, but quickly heated. Sarah's hands slid under Min Jae's shirt, and this time he didn't stop her. She pulled the shirt over his head, taking in his lean, muscled torso, the scars he'd mentioned. "Your turn," he breathed, helping her out of her dress. They stood there in his living room, touching and kissing and relearning desire. Min Jae picked her up, surprising strength in his lean frame, and carried her to his bedroom. This time, when he laid her on the bed, there was no holding back. "Are you sure?" he asked one more time. "Stop asking and make love to me," Sarah demanded. They came together slowly, carefully, learning each other's bodies and rhythms. Min Jae was attentive and thorough, pausing to check in, adjusting based on her responses. Sarah was vocal and expressive, showing him exactly what she needed. When they finally joined, both of them gasped at the perfection of it. They moved together, slow at first, then faster, finding a rhythm that felt inevitable. Sarah wrapped her legs around Min Jae's waist, pulling him deeper. Min Jae buried his face in her neck, overwhelmed by sensation and emotion. "Look at me," Sarah commanded. And when he did, she saw everything, desire and vulnerability and something that looked a lot like love. They came together, crying out each other's names, holding on like they might disappear if they let go. Afterward, they lay tangled together, sweaty and satisfied and laughing at the intensity of it. That was... Min Jae couldn't finish. "Real," Sarah supplied. "That was real." They made love twice more that night. Once fast and urgent against his shower wall, once slow and sweet in the early morning hours. Each time felt like discovery, like learning a new language, like coming home. In the morning, Sarah woke wrapped around Min Jae, both of them naked and comfortable with it. She traced the scars on his chest. "Tell me about these," she said softly. So he did. About his early days enforcing, about the violence he'd survived, about the hardness he'd developed to cope. Sarah listened without judgment, then told him about the years after Marcus died, about depression so deep she couldn't get out of bed, about rebuilding herself piece by piece, about the armor she'd constructed. "We're both survivors," she said finally. "Maybe we can be more than that now," Min Jae suggested. Together, over the next weeks, they fell into a rhythm. Min Jae came to Sarah's apartment most nights, learning to cook from her, helping with dishes, just existing in comfortable domesticity. Sarah occasionally stayed at his place, slowly making it feel less sterile, adding plants and photos and warmth. They made love constantly, in every room at different times of day, learning exactly how to drive each other crazy. But they also just existed together, reading in comfortable silence, working on their respective laptops, building the kind of intimate partnership neither had expected to find. Min-jae started extracting himself from the violent parts of his business, focusing on legitimate investments. Sarah started planning her foundation, energized by having someone to share dreams with. They talked about the future, carefully, not wanting to jinx it but with growing hope. And as December turned toward the new year, both of them realized the same thing. They weren't lonely anymore. After years of surviving alone, they'd found someone to actually live with. It wasn't perfect. They had their first fight about Min-jae's dangerous work, their second about Sarah's workaholic tendencies. But they learned to communicate, to compromise, to choose each other even when it was difficult. On Christmas Eve, Min-jae brought Sarah to his penthouse and showed her what he'd been working on. He'd hired decorators to transform the sterile space. Warm colors, comfortable furniture, photos of them together already framed on the walls. "I want this to feel like home," he said. "Our home, if you want that." Sarah walked through the transformed space, tears streaming down her face. "You did this for us? I did this because you taught me the difference between existing and living. Because I want to build a life with you, not just occupy space." They spent Christmas together, cooking breakfast, exchanging simple gifts. She gave him a first edition poetry book he'd mentioned wanting. He gave her a charm bracelet with a bird of paradise charm, making love lazily while snow fell outside. It was quiet and perfect and everything neither of them had thought they'd ever have again. "I love you," Sarah said as they lay tangled together that night. "I know it's fast, but I love you." "I love you too," Min-jae replied, pulling her closer. "I think I've loved you since that first conversation at the bar." As the year drew to a close, they both felt the same sense of gratitude. For chance meetings, for second chances, for the courage to risk their hearts one more time. They'd both been so lonely for so long, and now they had each other. It wasn't the end of their story. There were still challenges ahead: Min-jae's family, Sarah's friends' concerns, the judgment of strangers who saw only age difference and race. But they'd face it together. Two people who'd learned that love was worth fighting for. On New Year's Eve, they stood on his balcony overlooking Seoul, wrapped in blankets, watching fireworks explode across the sky. "What do you want for this year?" Sarah asked. Min-jae kissed her temple. "More of this. More of us. The rest we'll figure out." Sarah smiled against his chest. "That sounds perfect." They kissed as the clock struck midnight. Two formerly lonely souls starting a new year with hope and love and the promise of tomorrow. The city celebrated around them, but in their own private world, they'd already found everything they needed. January arrived cold and bright, and with it came reality in forms they'd been avoiding. Sarah's assistant was the first to notice the change. "You're glowing," Maya said suspiciously during a product development meeting. "And you've been leaving at 6 p.m. every day for 2 weeks. What's going on?" Sarah tried to play it cool. "Can't a woman just be happy?" "Not you. You live here. Spill." So Sarah did carefully. She showed Maya a photo of Min-jae from a coffee date. Him laughing at something she'd said, looking young and carefree. "He's gorgeous," Maya said. "Also, he looks about 12. How old is he?" 30, Sarah admitted. Maya's eyes widened. "Girl, you're robbing the cradle. I know how it looks. It looks like you're finally living again. It's about damn time." Maya hugged her. "But be careful, okay? Seoul can be judgmental as hell." She wasn't wrong. The first incident happened at a business dinner. Sarah had been invited to pitch Mitchell Beauty to a major department store chain, and Min-jae had come as her +1, dressed impeccably and playing the supportive partner perfectly. But Sarah caught the stares, at their clasped hands, at the way Min-jae pulled out her chair, at the obvious affection between them. Afterward, one of the executives approached her privately. Ms. Mitchell, I hope you don't mind me saying, but your companion. He seems quite young. Sarah lifted her chin. He's 30, successful in his own right, and the best thing that's happened to me in 20 years. Is there a business reason you're mentioning it? The man backtracked quickly, but the damage was done. Sarah left feeling exposed, judged, and by the time they got to Min-jae's car, she was shaking with anger. Hey! Min-jae pulled her close. Talk to me. They looked at us like we were wrong. Like I was wrong for being with you. Then they're idiots. Min-jae, this is going to keep happening. People are going to judge. Your associates, my clients, everyone. Let them. He cupped her face. Sarah, I chose you knowing this wouldn't be easy. I chose you because you're worth it. Unless. His voice wavered slightly. Unless you're having second thoughts. No. Sarah grabbed his jacket. No, I just needed to vent. I'm not going anywhere. But the incidents continued. Min-jae's world proved even harsher. Taeyong cornered him after a meeting. This woman you're seeing. The older black woman. Boss, people are talking. Let them talk. It makes you look weak. Like you can't get someone appropriate, someone who fits. Min-jae slammed Taeyong against the wall, controlled violence in every line of his body. Say one more word about her and you're done. She's not some woman. She's the woman I love. And anyone who has a problem with that can go to hell. He released Taeyong and walked out, hands shaking with rage. But that night, curled up with Sarah on her couch, he couldn't help but voice his fears. What if they're right? He said quietly. What if I'm being selfish? Dragging you into my complicated life when you could have someone easier? Sarah straddled his lap, forcing him to look at her. Min-jae Kong, listen to me. I don't want easier. I want you. I want your complications and your scars and your beautiful broken pieces. I want the man who makes me laugh and holds me when I cry and makes love to me like I'm precious. You are precious. Then stop questioning this. She kissed him firmly. We're going to face judgment. People are going to stare and whisper and make assumptions. But I've spent 20 years alone, and I'm not going back to that loneliness just because some people can't handle us being happy. They made love on her couch that night, urgent and affirming, proving to each other that they were worth the fight. Afterward, wrapped in throes in each other, they made a pact. No more letting outside voices matter more than what they had. But Min-jae's family proved harder to ignore. His mother showed up at his penthouse. Unannounced in late January, perfectly dressed and radiating disapproval. Min-jae had just enough time to warn Sarah, who was cooking dinner in yoga pants and one of his t-shirts, before his mother swept in. So this is her, Mrs. Kong said in Korean, looking Sarah up and down. The American. Mother, this is Sarah Mitchell. Sarah, my mother. Sarah extended her hand. Mrs. Kong, it's nice to meet you. His mother ignored the hand. You're older than I expected. And so, different. I'm 50, Sarah said calmly, switching to Korean. And black, in case you hadn't noticed. If you're here to insult me, please do it directly instead of pretending I don't understand you. Mrs. Kang's eyebrows rose in surprise. Then she switched to rapid Korean, clearly testing. My son could have any woman in Seoul. Young women from good families who would strengthen our position. Instead, he chooses an aging foreigner with no connections and questionable morals. What kind of woman pursues a man 20 years younger? The kind who didn't pursue him at all, Sarah replied smoothly in Korean. Your son approached me. Your son chose me. And with all due respect, Mrs. Kong, your son is 30 years old and capable of making his own decisions. Mother, that's enough, Min-jae interjected. You will not come into my home and disrespect the woman I love. Love. His mother laughed bitterly. You're infatuated. This will pass, and you'll be left with nothing. No proper wife, no family support, no future. I have a future, Min-jae said quietly. For the first time in years, I actually have a future. Sarah gives me that. She makes you weak. She makes me human. There's a difference. Mrs. Kong turned back to Sarah. How much? Excuse me? How much money will it take for you to leave my son? Name your price. Sarah felt like she'd been slapped. She set down the spoon she'd been holding, turned off the stove, and faced Min-jae's mother directly. Mrs. Kong, I run a multimillion-dollar cosmetics company. I don't need your money. What I need is for you to understand that I love your son. Not his wallet, not his status, not whatever power you think he represents. I love him because he's kind and honest and trying so hard to be better than his circumstances. I love him because when I was drowning in loneliness, he threw me a lifeline. And I will not apologize for that or walk away because you can't see past your own prejudices. The room fell silent. Min-jae stared at Sarah with something like awe. His mother's face had gone pale with rage. You're making a mistake, Mrs. Kong said to her son. When this ends badly, and it will, don't come crying to me. She swept out, and the silence she left behind was deafening. I'm sorry, Min-jae said immediately. I should have warned you better. I should have. Sarah pulled him into a fierce hug. Don't apologize. Your mother is protecting her vision of your future, even if that vision is wrong. I get it. I don't like it, but I get it. She had no right to offer you money. No, she didn't. But Min-jae, this is what we're going to face. From your family, from society, from people who can't understand why we work. Sarah pulled back to look at him. The question is, are we strong enough to weather it? Yes. No hesitation. Sarah, I don't care if my entire family disowns me. I don't care if every business associate questions my judgment. You're my priority. And you're mine. She kissed him softly. So let's stop letting other people's opinions dictate our happiness. They finished making dinner together, and if the food was a little cold by the time they ate, it was because they'd gotten distracted making love against the kitchen counter, affirming their choice of each other. But the challenges continued mounting. Sarah's friends staged an intervention over brunch. We're worried, her friend Ji-won said carefully. This man, Min-jae, you barely know him. He's so much younger, and his business sounds dangerous. I know all of that, Sarah said. What's your actual concern? That you're so desperate not to be alone anymore. You're ignoring red flags. Sarah set down her coffee cup. You think I'm that pathetic? That I'd settle for anyone just to avoid loneliness? No, but I spent 20 years alone. 20 years building a business and surviving and being strong. I know what loneliness feels like, and I know the difference between settling and finding something real. Sarah's voice softened. Min-jae isn't perfect. His world is complicated, and yes, there's an age gap. But he sees me, really sees me. He doesn't want me to be younger or different or anything other than exactly who I am. How many men have ever offered me that? Ji-won reached across the table. We just don't want you hurt. I know, and I love you for caring. But this is my risk to take. The conversation with her friends left Sarah rattled, though. That night, she showed up at Min-jae's place and said, Tell me everything. About your business, about the danger, about what I'm really getting into. So he did. For 3 hours, Min-jae laid out the truth. The syndicate, the territory disputes, the violence he'd participated in and witnessed. He told her about the blood on his hands, the guilt he carried, the empire built on fear. He told her about his plan to transition to legitimate business, but also the reality that you couldn't just walk away from his world. Sarah listened to everything, processing, and then asked the only question that mattered. Are you trying to be better? Every day. Are you violent with people who don't deserve it? Never. I protect people who can't protect themselves, even if the methods are questionable. Do you love me? More than anything. Sarah took his hand. Then we'll figure out the rest. Together. They made love that night with new intensity. Now that all cards were on the table, now that she knew exactly who he was and chose him anyway. Min-jae worshipped her body. Like a prayer of gratitude. Sarah gave herself completely, no more walls, no more holding back. As February approached, they both felt the relationship solidifying into something permanent. They talked about the future more concretely. Min-jae's exit strategy from the syndicate, Sarah's foundation plans, where they'd live, how they'd blend their lives. Move in with me, Min-jae said one night as they lay tangled together. Properly. Not just staying over, but actually live here. Your place or mine, ours, we'll find something new. Something that's both of us from the start. Sarah smiled against his chest. I'd like that. They started house hunting, looking for something in between. Not Gangnam's elite sterility, not Itaewon's chaos, but somewhere they could be themselves. They found a house in Hanamdong, all windows and light, with space for Sarah's product development and Min-jae's office, with a kitchen big enough for them to cook together and a bedroom that faced the sunrise. This is it, Sarah said, standing in the empty living room, imagining their life there. This is home, Min-jae agreed. They put in an offer that night. As Valentine's Day approached, Sarah felt anxiety building. 20 years of hating the holiday, of it representing everything she'd lost. Could one person really change that? Min-jae noticed her tension. What is it? Valentine's Day, Sarah admitted. I know it's stupid, but I've spent 20 years dreading it. It's just a reminder of being alone. Not this year. Min-jae pulled her close. This year you're with me, and I'm going to make up for every lonely Valentine's Day you've ever had. That's a tall order. I'm up for the challenge. He kissed her forehead. Trust me. Always. On February 13th, the night before Valentine's Day, Sarah woke to find Min-jae gone from bed. She found him in the kitchen at 2 a.m., covered in flour, attempting to bake. What are you doing? She asked, laughing. Trying to make your grandmother's sweet potato pie. I called your friend G1 for the recipe, but I think I'm doing it wrong. Sarah's heart melted. Min-jae, you don't have to. I want to. You told me your grandmother made this every Valentine's Day before she died. I wanted you to have it again, to have good memories mixed with the grief. She helped him fix the pie, both of them laughing at his mistakes, and by dawn they had something that actually resembled her grandmother's recipe. They ate it for breakfast, feeding each other bites, and Sarah felt 20 years of Valentine's pain start to ease. Thank you, she whispered, for caring enough to try. Thank you for teaching me what love actually looks like, Min-jae replied. That afternoon, Sarah went to work to finalize some contracts, and Min-jae disappeared on mysterious errands. She tried not to overthink it, tried not to build up expectations. But when she got home that evening, she found a note on her door. Put on something comfortable and meet me at our house. The new one. I have a surprise. Sarah's hands trembled as she changed into a soft dress and called a taxi to Hanamdong. The house wouldn't officially be theirs for another week. But when she arrived, the door was unlocked, and candles lit a path inside. Min-jae had transformed the empty space. Blankets and pillows created a nest in the middle of the living room. Food from her favorite restaurants covered a makeshift table. Photos of them together decorated the bare walls. Him laughing at her jokes, her sleeping peacefully in his arms, both of them dancing in her kitchen. Flowers, birds of paradise, filled every corner. And standing in the middle of it all was Min-jae, wearing jeans and a soft sweater, looking nervous and hopeful and so beautiful she could barely breathe. Hi, he said softly. Hi. Sarah looked around, overwhelmed. Min-jae, This is 20 years worth of Valentine's days that should have been celebrations. I can't give those back to you, but I can start making new memories. He took her hands. Sarah, for 20 years you were alone on this day. For 30 years I was empty. But this year we have each other. And I wanted to make sure you knew exactly how much that means to me. Sarah's eyes filled with tears. You did all this? I had help. Ji-won told me which restaurants you love. Maya from your office helped me print and frame the photos. Even Taeyong helped me get the keys early, though he still thinks I'm crazy. You are crazy. Crazy about you. Min-jae pulled her close. Dance with me. He'd set up speakers, and now soft music filled the empty house. Soul and R&B. The soundtrack of Sarah's youth. They swayed together in their future home, surrounded by candlelight and hope. I love you, Sarah said against his chest. I love you so much it scares me. I love you too. And Sarah? He pulled back slightly to look at her. This house, this life we're building, it's forever for me. I know we've only been together 2 months, but I've never been more certain of anything. You're my person, my home, my future. You're mine too. Sarah kissed him deeply. Every complicated, beautiful part of you. They made love there in their new house, on the blankets Min-jae had arranged, surrounded by flowers and candlelight. It was slow and reverent, both of them pouring years of loneliness and hope into every touch. Min-jae took his time, worshipping every inch of Sarah's body, whispering how much he loved her, how beautiful she was, how grateful he was that she'd chosen him. Sarah gave herself completely, no walls, no fear, no holding back. She let Min-jae see every vulnerable part of her, trusted him with her heart and her body and her future. When they finally came together, it felt like completion, like 2 puzzle pieces finally finding their place. Afterward, they lay tangled together, feeding each other food, talking about their plans for decorating the house, laughing at Min-jae's terrible baking attempts. This is the best Valentine's Day I've ever had, Sarah said softly. Thank you for giving me back this day. Thank you for giving me a reason to celebrate it. Min-jae kissed her temple. Next year we'll be living here. The year after that maybe we'll host a party. Every year, I'm going to make sure you know how loved you are. They stayed in their new house until dawn, making love and making plans and making promises. When they finally left, Sarah didn't feel the usual Valentine's dread. Instead, she felt hopeful, excited for next year and the year after that and all the years they'd have together. The next day, Sarah posted a photo on her company's Instagram, her and Min-jae at their new house, looking at each other with obvious love. The caption was simple. When you find your person, age is just a number. Happy Valentine's Day to the man who taught me to live again. The comments were mixed. Some supportive, many judgmental, a few outright cruel. But Sarah didn't care anymore. She'd spent 20 years worried about what people thought, and it had only made her lonely. Min-jae did the same, posting the photo to his private account with the caption, "She makes me want to be better. That's all that matters." His mother called, furious. His associates questioned his judgment. But Min-jae stood firm. Sarah was his choice and he wasn't backing down. They moved into the house in March, blending their lives officially. Sarah's plants filled the windows. Min-jae's books lined the shelves. Their photos covered the walls. It was chaotic and imperfect and absolutely perfect. They had their first fight in the new house, about Min-jae taking unnecessary risks in his business. Sarah cried. Min-jae shouted. But then they talked it through, compromised, and made love on the kitchen counter as reconciliation. They had their second fight about Sarah working too much, missing dinners, prioritizing clients over their relationship. Min-jae sulked. Sarah got defensive. But then they remembered what mattered each other and figured out better balance. They learned each other's rhythms. Min-jae learned that Sarah needed mornings alone with coffee before being social. Sarah learned that Min-jae processed emotions through action, needing to cook or clean or fix things when upset. They learned to communicate, to compromise, to choose each other even when it was hard. On Sarah's 50th birthday in late February, Min-jae threw her a surprise party, intimate, just their closest friends, but filled with love. Ji-won cried seeing Sarah so happy. Maya gave a toast about finding love at any age. Even Taeyong showed up, grudgingly admitting that maybe his boss wasn't crazy after all. Min-jae's gift was a locket, antique gold, with a photo of them inside and an inscription. "You taught me to live." 50 never looked so good, he whispered, fastening it around her neck. 30 never looked so wise, Sarah replied, pulling him into a kiss. They made love that night with the windows open, spring air flowing through their bedroom, and Sarah felt completely, utterly alive. Not just surviving anymore, not just existing, but living fully, messily, beautifully living. As spring bloomed over Seoul, they settled into their life together. Min-jae slowly transitioned out of the syndicate, building legitimate businesses with Sarah's support. Sarah launched her foundation with Min-jae's help, creating opportunities for young Black women in beauty. They traveled to Jeju for long weekends, to Japan for Sarah's business, to small Korean towns where no one knew them and they could just be a couple in love. The stares continued. The judgments persisted, but they'd learned to let them roll off, focusing instead on what they'd built together. A partnership based on honesty, respect, and the kind of deep love that only comes from truly seeing and being seen by another person. One night in May, lying in bed after making love, Sarah traced the scars on Min-jae's chest and said, "I never thought I'd have this again. Real love, real partnership, someone who knows all of me and stays." "I never thought I'd have it at all," Min-jae replied. "I thought I was too broken, too damaged. We're both a little broken. That's what makes us fit so well together." They lay there in comfortable silence, and both thought the same thing. They'd been so lonely for so long, and now they had each other. And that made everything, every judgment, every stare, every challenge, completely worth it. "Thank you," Sarah whispered. "For what?" "For choosing me, for seeing me, for making 50 feel like the beginning instead of the end." Min-jae pulled her closer, kissed her deeply. "Thank you for teaching me what love actually means, for making me want to be better, for being my home." Outside their window, Seoul hummed with life. Inside, two formerly lonely souls had found their forever. It hadn't been easy. It hadn't been simple, but it had been real and true, and worth every moment of courage it took to choose love over loneliness. They fell asleep tangled together, both smiling, both grateful, both finally, completely home.
Hello besties, don't let society rules, timelines or judgment steal a chance at real happiness. Love doesn't check your age, your bank account, your race or your past. You just ask, are you brave enough to let it in? Thank you so much for watching. Kindly like, subscribe and share.